Today we are diving into the world of apple pie. Now, you have two choices when it comes to apple pie. You can go homemade crust, go all out, get crazy, or you can go store-bought, make it easy, make it fast. This is the Pillsbury pie crust. It doesn't contain any milk, any dairy, so you know, all my vegan friends, you would use this one. Or if you just don't feel like making pie dough from scratch, this is always a good substitute. But today, we're making that dough. So, when it comes to baking, measurements are your friend. I use a scale all the time. I'm gonna use a metal bowl today. This kitchen scale, yeah, he's my best friend. So, I don't have a pie dough recipe, but I've been going pie crazy, testing out recipes, and I found one that I love, and it's by Sally's Bake Blog. So we're gonna go with hers today, and we're gonna start by measuring out our flour. A reason why I like to measure is because if you use cups, you kind of pack the cups differently, and it's not always guaranteed that you're going to have one cup. One cup in King Arthur flour is about 120 grams. So there's no way to tell if you have exactly 120 grams unless you measure it out. I'm going for 315. No, actually 313, and I'm right on the money. These are our dry ingredients. We have flour, we have some sugar, and we have some salt. I'm gonna link her recipe down below in the description. The key to good pie dough is everything is cold. You don't want your butter to melt before it has a chance to incorporate into the dough or get into the oven. If you ever run into an issue where you're finding that your dough is kind of melting, throw it in the refrigerator. It will be fine. Give it 15 minutes, then go back to working with it. Just gonna mix this. We're gonna get dirty anyway, so don't be scared. Use your hands. Now, butter. You want it cold and you want it cubed. I'm just going to throw the pieces right into here. Once all the butter is in there, I like to toss it in the flour so every piece is coated. Now this part you can do with your hands or you can do with a pastry cutter. So what we're gonna do is just cut the butter into pea-sized pieces. You want the bits to be about pea-sized or a little bigger because the bigger your butter, the flakier your pie crust. Now if you were using your fingers, you would pick up the pieces of butter and kind of smash them like this so that they resemble walnut half-size pieces all throughout the dough. That's kind of the texture you're going for. If you see pieces that are a little too big, you can just smush them with your finger. Now we're going in with the ice water. The recipe calls for half a cup of ice water. I measured out a cup, put some ice in it, and then I'm going to do about a cup in here because the ice melts, so it's gonna make more than a cup of water. I'm only adding in half a cup. And we're gonna add in about half. A little bit less than half because we're gonna see how this comes out. And we're just tossing it to combine. See, it's still kind of like loose, but when you squeeze it together, see some pieces are starting to clump up as one. We're getting in there. I can already tell I'm gonna need more water, so I'm gonna go ahead and add a little more. And just kind of mix to incorporate it. The dough should not be sticky to the touch. So you don't want to work this too much, but I'm just trying to see if I can get it together. This is doing good. These pieces are a little dry, so I'm gonna add just the tiniest touch and try to get that together. See how it's getting smooth a little bit? That's what I'm looking for. It's not bad to have a few cracks. Now this is a double pie crust recipe, so I'm gonna cut it in half. That should be about half. And now I'm gonna form these into their own disc. Top crust and bottom crust. Now what you wanna do is take some plastic wrap and wrap up your disc separately. I kinda like to flatten them so it's easier for them to get cold and easier to roll out later. These are going to be thrown in the refrigerator for 2 hours, nothing less than that. I want them to be hard, firm. The butter has to be super cold, so 2 hours should do the trick. We're going to get started with our filling. These are the apples that I like to use. I use Honeycrisp and I use Granny Smith. You can use any kind of baking apples, but I like the flavor of these two together. So what we want to do is peel the apples and then slice them into about 1/4 or 1/8 of an inch thick. I'll go with 1/8. And we want about 800 grams. These little babies are tinier than I'm used to, but they'll still work. For our cuts, you just want to cut it in half, cut it into quarters, and then cut this core out because we don't need that. Now we're just gonna cut these into about 1/8 inch thick. And that's all she wrote. At this point, I'm just grabbing my scale and I'm gonna weigh out about 800 grams of apples. This is actually perfect. So I have about 820 grams of sliced apples. This also measures out to about 8 cups of apples, so you can use 7 to 8 cups of apples for your apple pie. Now we have some lemon, and I just want to squeeze about 1 tablespoon of juice in the lemon, poke it a little bit to get that juice flowing, and just go down. So now we're gonna add in our spices. We have some cinnamon, we have some allspice, and we have some ginger. You want about 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. Cinnamon is our main flavor here. We want 1/4 teaspoon of both the ginger and the allspice. We also have brown and white sugar, so about 1/4 cup of each, or 67 grams of brown sugar and 56 grams of white sugar. I like to crumble the brown sugar just to get it broken up. We're also adding in 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and the salt is just gonna help bring up all of those flavors. Kosher salt, of course, diamond crystal only. And we're just gonna give this a toss. We want all the apples to be coated with all of our spices and all of the sugar. So now we're just gonna let this sit for 30 minutes. They're gonna release some juices, and you're gonna use those juices in the pie as well. So we'll come back in 30 minutes. So our apples have had a chance to release a lot of juices. And now what we wanna do is put 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. Now apples have pectin, which helps it, gel up a little bit, but sometimes it needs a little more help. So I like to add cornstarch. We're just gonna mix that in. That's gonna absorb some of those juices as well. That's good enough. So we're gonna move this over and get started on our pie dough. We have our pie dough here, so we're just going to sprinkle some flour down, not too much, just enough so that it won't stick to our surface. Now you know the rule for pie dough, you wanna keep everything cold, so you wanna work quickly. Put flour on here as well. And today I'm going to be using a marble rolling pin. Naturally, marble is super cold. That's gonna help us keep our dough as cold as possible as well. A little extra flour from my rolling pin, and we're just gonna roll that out. I like to move it every so often, flip it, push any cracks together with your fingers. And we wanna get this into about 10.5 inches since our pie plate is 9 inches. So as you can see, my mat has a little measurement, so I know where I'm at. I just wanted to get it past those 10 inches. I'll link this pastry mat in the description below. It's really awesome. So you can really see those pieces of butter. That's because we did not make them too small when we were making the pie crust. So the crust is not super thin. It has a good thickness to it. What I like to do is fold it into 4s. Take our pie plate, put this in the center, then unfold it. And we don't want to push this into the corners, we want to lift the edge and just kind of let it sink down on its own. And we're going to put this in the refrigerator while we work on our top crust. So now I'm just going to take a knife. If you have a pizza cutter, that will work great. And I'm just going to make some cuts because we are doing a lattice. So these are going to be about 1.5 inch thick. Now I'm just going to take this whole thing and throw it on a sheet tray. And I'm gonna get this in the fridge while we work on our bottom. I'm gonna use a spoon that has some holes in it so that I'm getting all the apples down before any juice is added. And we want that as flat as possible because we're going to pile it high. And I'm just fixing any pieces with my hands. We don't want any gaps, so try to get this as uniform as possible. And it's kind of like a mound. We have about a 1/3 cup of the juices, so we're just gonna add all of those juices right on top. I have some cold cubed butter here, and we're just gonna dot the top with these pieces of butter. This is 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter. Bringing back our top, and we're gonna do a cross lattice. I'm gonna put the longest pieces right in the middle. Then we're gonna lift up 2 pieces and we're gonna go diagonally. So you want this to be lifted, and then we're gonna drop it back down. And then we're gonna lift this piece and go diagonally. And put this back down. So can you see the little diagonal pattern I have going on here? And now we're gonna do the same for this side. Lift that piece, come diagonally with this piece. Straight back down, come down here. And we're lifting this piece and coming down here. Now you see all these excess edges. We don't want to cut too much. So I'm just gonna come and cut off what I think is too much. And now we're just going to pick these edges up and tuck them in. This will make us have a thick crust, a thick edge for our crust. Then when everything is tucked in, we want to make sure our edges are about the same thickness all around. And then we're going to come with our finger and create that edge. So you're just using 2 fingers to hold and 1 finger to push in the middle. And our edges are pretty much done here. Just touching up anything that needs to be a little more defined. And that is our pie. We're gonna chill this pie for 15 minutes so the edge is set. And while it's chilling, we're gonna preheat our oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit. We wanna start this pie off at a higher temperature so that the crust browns, and then we're gonna lower it to 350 after 15 minutes. Continue cooking it for an additional hour. Every 20 minutes, we're gonna rotate the pie by 90 degrees so that we have even browning around the whole pie. Once you take your apple pie out of the oven, let it cool for at least 2 hours because the inside is literally like hot lava. So you want to cool that off before you start to cut into it. During this time, it'll also start to set a little more, so you'll have a better time cutting it. I like to use a serrated knife to cut my pie because the edges are super sharp, so it gets right through that crust without breaking it. And then I use a small paring knife to make sure the cuts are clean, so that I can take it right out with a pie spatula with no hassle. This pie does take a lot of time and effort, so you can save it for a special occasion like holidays, or you can use it as a fun weekend baking project. Here is our beautiful apple pie. You can see the layers of apples in there. The crust is nice and hard. Don't be like me and forget to put the egg wash. It would be beautiful and shiny if you had that egg wash on there, but you know, things happen when you're filming, okay? So I'm just gonna taste it. Ooh, that crust just broke apart. It's not too hard. It's not too sweet. You get that mix of texture from the different apples. And it's just all around great. This is like the all-American pie. You need to try it. Put it on your holiday table and let me know when you do. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe, like, and comment. Everything will be in the description. I have all the links to the full recipe, the link to the little pastry mat I showed you earlier, and whatever other links you're interested in, just let me know and I'll drop them down below. Thanks for watching. Bye.